Kate, the Future Queen, by Katie Nicholl. The Little Prince. His Royal Highness Prince George Alexander Louis of Cambridge entered the world at 4:24 p.m. on Monday, July 22, weighing an impressive 8 pounds, 6 ounces. With a wisp of dark hair and a perfectly proportioned little nose, he sported a good set of lungs, according to his proud father. Kate had endured a 9-hour labor on the hottest day of the year, and William had been at her side throughout. Not only was she faced with the overwhelming prospect of giving birth for the first time, but Kate was also carrying the weight of expectation of an enthralled nation and a worldwide audience of millions tuned in via television and radio. Outside the hospital and at Buckingham Palace, huge crowds gathered, together with representatives from the world's media. This was, after all, the birth of a future sovereign, and the first Prince of Cambridge in nearly 200 years. Waiting for the arrival of a new heir to the throne is a royal tradition. When the Queen was born in 1926, thousands congregated outside 17 Bruton Street in Mayfair, eager for a glimpse of the new princess, and similarly, the crowds amassed in thousands when the Prince of Wales was born in 1948, the birth made public by a live announcement on the BBC. Finally, after endless speculation and a wait that had become a global phenomenon, Kate was rewarded with the son she had longed for, a beautiful baby boy who shared the same Cancer astrological sign as his father and Diana, the grandmother he would never meet. Tucked away in a private suite on the 3rd floor of the hospital, it must have been a deeply emotional and special time for the couple as they held their baby for the first time. Not wanting the moment to pass too quickly, they decided to keep the arrival a secret for several hours, telling only their immediate family members. Protocol dictated that William call his grandmother on a specially encrypted phone upon the birth. Then there were calls to Kate's parents in Bucklebury, her sister and brother, Prince Charles and Camilla, and Prince Harry, all of whom were relieved and elated in equal measure. A minute before Big Ben struck 8:30 p.m. and dusk fell upon London, the couple gave their aides permission to issue a statement via email and Twitter, announcing the birth. It was a last-minute change of plan. Traditionally, the notice of birth, a bulletin bearing the news of the baby's sex, weight, and time of birth and signed by the Royal Medical Team, is taken from the hospital to Buckingham Palace, where it is posted on an easel in the forecourt. But not for the first time, William and Kate decided they wanted to do things differently and that it would be the simpler and easier to announce the news via email and social media. The Clarence House tweet read, "Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cambridge was safely delivered of a son at 4:24 p.m. The news sent Twitter into overdrive as 487 million people tweeted messages of congratulations. The global media organizations broadcast the announcement simultaneously. When they did, an echo of cheers around the city could be heard from St. Mary's in Paddington to Buckingham Palace, where thousands had gathered to see the notice of birth. This document had by now been dispatched by an aide and driven to Buckingham Palace, where the Queen, having returned from Windsor Castle, was now in residence. The bulletin, posted at 8:48 p.m. read, "Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cambridge was safely delivered of a son at 4:24 p.m. today. Her Royal Highness and her child are both doing well. It's a boy." The crowds cheered loudly as they jumped into the fountains beneath the Queen Victoria Memorial. The mall had finally cooled down after the blistering heat of the day. Many people remained in situ for hours, singing and celebrating and soaking up the atmosphere long after the lights at the palace had gone out. Down the road, the fountains at Trafalgar Square were illuminated with blue lights to herald the arrival of the baby prince, along with Tower Bridge, while the lights of the BT Telecom Tower, one of the tallest landmarks in the city, lit up to beam the news, "It's a boy," to the capital. William and Kate issued a simple statement, saying, "We could not be happier," and the Queen exclaimed that she and Prince Philip, who was at Sandringham recovering from abdominal surgery, were delighted. the Prince of Wales issued a statement that he was enormously proud and happy to become a grandfather for the first time. Speaking outside 10 Downing Street, David Cameron said, "It is wonderful news. I am sure that right across the country and right across the Commonwealth, people will be celebrating." They were. Indeed, messages flooded in from around the world, President Obama wishing the couple much happiness. "Michelle and I are so pleased to congratulate the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge on the joyous occasion of the birth of their first child." In Canada, the Governor-General tweeted, "Wonderful news," while in Australia and New Zealand, they were waking up to the happy news. Dr. Setchell, who had emerged from the hospital after the birth to tell the waiting media the baby was beautiful, had advised Kate to stay in the hospital overnight. William ordered takeout pizzas and slept at his wife's side, next to their son. They had not yet decided what to call their firstborn, despite having drawn up a short list of their favorite boys' and girls' names. Kate had affectionately referred to her bump as Grape while she was pregnant, and there was a flurry of betting on the baby's name ahead of the birth. The next morning, their first as parents, must surely have been surreal. Outside on the street, the rolling news stations were reporting every hour on the story, and at Buckingham Palace, a media village had been erected at Canada Gate on the Mall in order to broadcast every development of the breaking story. The front pages of the morning newspapers all carried the news of the baby prince, with the tabloid newspaper The Sun changing its masthead for the occasion to The Sun. A 41-gun salute was fired in Green Park by the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery at the same time as a 62-gun salute at the Tower of London. Shortly after lunchtime, following a visit from Dr. Setchell, Carol and Michael arrived to visit their daughter and first grandchild. They waved to the crowds before hurrying up to Kate's room on the 3rd floor. When they emerged, an hour later, they were beaming. Carol, in a pretty summer frock, approached the press pack and addressed them for the very first time. Asked how her first grandchild was, she lit up and revealed she had enjoyed a first cuddle. "Marvelous, thank you very much, absolutely wonderful." She said the new parents were both doing really well and we are so thrilled. Prince Charles and Camilla were on their way to London, having carried out engagements in the north of England, and arrived soon afterward. When Charles emerged, 20 minutes later, his smile said it all, and upon being asked about the baby, he playfully pointed his finger and told newscasters, "You'll see in a minute." The wait felt like hours, the hush of anticipation silencing the press corps, whose cameras were trained on the hospital's double glass panel doors. Behind them, William and Kate made a last-minute check to ensure that the baby heir, whom Kate had swaddled in a shawl, was settled and happy. It was 7 p.m. in the evening and the as-yet-to-be-named Prince of Cambridge was about to make his first public appearance on the very same steps where, 31 years, 1 month, and 1 day before, Charles and Diana had presented William to a jubilant nation. On the pavement, packed together like sardines, the crowd stood behind police barriers. Some had camped overnight to secure their position. A handful of them had also been there to watch Charles and Diana make the same short journey all those years ago. The doors of the Lindo wing finally swung open, and the family emerged to a riot of flashes, celebratory cheers, and calls of congratulations. As Kate negotiated her way down the stone steps in her wedge sandals, not once taking her eyes off her precious baby, it was impossible not to think of the woman in whose footsteps she was following. On her left hand she wore Diana's engagement ring, its sapphire and diamond sparkling in the early evening light, and she had chosen a baby blue and white polka-dot dress similar to the patterned dress Diana had worn when she left the very same hospital with William. Possibly it was her way of paying a personal tribute to Diana, who would have been thrilled to be a grandmother. With a winning smile and her wide, warm eyes, she absorbed the incredible spectacle before her. As if on cue, baby Cambridge stretched his tiny fingers in front of his crumpled face as though he were giving the world a wave. Then it was William's turn, and taking great care, he leaned into his wife, his arms held out in front of him to receive the swaddled baby. He looked down at his son with a look of joy and disbelief. Camera phones were held high in the air to capture the amazing scene, while TV reporters paused for breath to enjoy the moment. They had been allowed to ask a few questions of the couple, and when asked how she was feeling, Kate looked close to tears of joy. "It's very emotional and such a special time. I think any parent will probably know what this feeling feels like." She added proudly that William had done the first nappy already, and when asked what they planned to call the baby prince, William revealed, "We're still working on a name, so we will have that as soon as we can." After observing, "He's a big boy, he's quite heavy," he joked that the baby had his wife's looks, thankfully, and way more hair than me. After the brief press conference, it was time to head home, and, addressing his wife as Poppet, William accompanied Kate back into the hospital. When they re-emerged, William, with shirt sleeves rolled up, was carrying his son in a baby seat, which he expertly clipped into the waiting Range Rover, while Kate sat in the back next to the baby, stroking his little fingers. Once again, the shutters of hundreds of cameras clattered noisily, filling the evening sky with lightning-like flashes as William broke with tradition, just as he had on his wedding day, and climbed into the driver's seat. As he took the wheel and glanced in the rearview mirror at his wife, he smiled. This was what it was all about, the three of them and the wonderful future that lay ahead of them. As they swept through the wrought-iron gates to Kensington Palace, this was just the beginning.